Hi everybody and welcome to another painting tutorial. I'm going to be changing it up this week, and instead of painting with watercolor paints, I decided to pull out my acrylic paints and give those a whirl, mainly because I saw a photo on Instagram by Rosie's Sketchbook, which I will comment or include in the description rather, so that you guys have the original reference painting. I believe that she paints mostly with gouache, at least that's what it looks like from her photos. I don't have gouache, but instead I just watered down some acrylic paint and it seems to achieve the same sort of look, so that's what I'm going with. I really like the opacity of acrylic paints, which is why I occasionally paint with them, just to change it up a little bit, because when you paint with watercolors, I mean, if you just paint with one medium all the time, your brain sort of gets foggy, or at least mine does, so I just wanted to change it up with something different. So after I taped the borders of my rectangle, just because I wanted straight edges and not messy edges once my painting was finished, I went ahead and just covered that whole rectangle with sort of a baby blue, cloudy blue color. And once that had dried, I went ahead and started adding my horizon line. So this horizon line I later turned into little mountains or mounds that were sort of fading into the distance. And I used a variety of colors to achieve this sort of grayish blue color for the mountains. I don't really have a very large selection of acrylic paints, so when I do paint with acrylic paint, it's a lot of, random mixing and trial and error to achieve the closest version of the color that I'm looking for. So you definitely do not have to use the exact same colors that you see me using here. You can achieve the same results using whatever colors that you have laying around. So once that's completely dried, you can go ahead and start adding in the splashes of your waves. So this technique is actually really easy. You just take an acrylic brush that has been dipped into white acrylic paint, but you just have to make sure that that brush is completely dry, because I think the technique is called dry brushing. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but you just dab off the excess paint and then you just keep dabbing to achieve that sort of cloudy, fluffy look. And the reason that I did that before painting the foreground is because it's a lot easier to paint over top of the splashes and make it look like the splashes are coming from the other side of the foreground mound kind of thing that I'm painting here. So just make sure you do that first. So afterwards you saw that I painted sort of a green foreground, and this is where my lighthouse is going to rest. I went ahead and added some white accents just on the border, just to bring out some of that splash, make it look like it's a lot splashier in some areas than others. And I also added different shades of green to my foreground, just to vary it up a little bit so it didn't look super flat. And after that had dried, or partially dried because I tend to be impatient, I went ahead and added some horizontal lines, because these are supposed to be steps leading up to our lighthouse. And I added some brown accents to the bottom of the steps to make it look like there are shadows and make the steps look a little bit more 3D. Then I started painting my lighthouse, and it was fairly simple. I just painted a white rectangle with a reddish maroon brownish sort of color on the top and the bottom. Again, don't have a large selection of colors, so I just kind of went with what I had. So if you have a nice red color, I'm sure that will look a lot nicer for the lighthouse. You can also add some accent windows in there to make it look a little bit more realistic. And you can also add some other details to your foreground. I decided to add some rocks coming out of the water, or could really be anything that's peeking out of the water, but I just wanted to vary up the painting a little bit more. finally, the fun part, which is peeling off that tape and revealing beautiful borders, and you are totally finished. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in next week's tutorial.